internet world. My name's Kerry Davies and I work for an organisation called the Council of Single Mothers and Their Children. And in Australia, up until now, we have had a free and accessible universal healthcare system that anyone can go to a doctor and get treatment for free. Our government is trying to take that away from us. And when they first leaked that they were going to do that, it was $6 a visit. Within a month, when they released their budget, it was $7 a visit. We know it will never end. We will end up like the US and our people will be destroyed. And we are not going to accept it. We will be back on the streets until they stop and we win.
We're marching today to save Medicare, to demand free health and to try and stop this savage budget that the Liberal government, the Tory government is putting through, which is about establishing the American-style education system, healthcare system, whole profit-driven system in this country.
Tony Abbott wants to introduce into Australia the same extreme type of neoliberalism that now exists in America. It is that extreme type of neoliberalism that privatizes healthcare, that completely destroys workers' rights, that completely degrades the environment, and that puts billions of dollars into the funding of overseas wars, and the purchase of military equipment to be used against essentially the enemies of the United States, whether it be in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Ukraine, Venezuela, Syria, or any other countries that are currently facing the effects of United States imperialism.
What do we want? 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 What do we want?
And you need to talk to all of your friends and all of your colleagues about what you did tonight and why you are here and why we will be back. We'll 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 be back.
We want to have universal access to healthcare, and we think it's really, really important. And we fight for this principle. We fight for people's economic rights, if you like, because this is already being paid for. To introduce co-payment would be a form of double taxation. So it's all the more important that we stop this today.
We'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back.
Now everyone is a member of a union here, and even if you're not, I would like to put it to this crowd that I would be willing to stop work for a day to fuck this budget and to save Medicare.
Stop work to fuck the budget.
I want all of you who are in unions to tell your unions that you want to go out on strike. And I want everyone who's not in a union to bloody well join one and then tell them to go out on strike.
Stop work to fuck the budget.
Stop work to fuck the budget.
Stop work for a week, not one day, a week.
And I will remind you again to keep talking not just to the Liberal Party, and we'll never talk to them. The conversation is over. My apologies. But you need to talk to Labor and you need to talk to the Greens and you need to remind them that we will not accept exceptions. There ought to be no exceptions to this, because if they put this through and they say, oh, we'll just let people with concession cards have it for free, what comes next?
US.
We do not accept any of it. Not any of it. Thank you everyone so much for coming here tonight. The next rally is Bust the Budget on the 12th of June at the Victorian Trade Hall at 10:30 a.m. Thursday the 12th of June, 10:30 a.m. Bust the Budget. Be there. Good night. Budget on Thursday the 12th of afternoon at 10:30 a.m. outside Trent Hall.
Capitalism is in major crisis, and it has been for since the global financial crisis, essentially. The response to the ruling class, to the capitalists, to the bosses all around the world has been to implement exactly what the Abbott government is trying to implement here in Australia, which is ultimately a tax on ordinary people, a tax on the living conditions of ordinary people. This means austerity, this means cuts to public education, cuts to public health, cuts to welfare spending, and essentially making ordinary people pay the cost of a crisis, a political and economic crisis that we did not bring about.
Australia is finally starting to feel the effects of the global financial crisis. Austerity has come to Australia. The Liberal government, which are Liberal only in their economic free market way of thinking, have implemented a budget of austerity that affects people with disabilities, women, the young, the sick, the poor, the working class people more than anyone else. And Australians have had enough of it. We're taking to the streets to defend our Medicare, to defend our rights that have been fought for, and the universal health care that we deserve. So we're here today taking to the streets to make sure that our voices are heard, to make sure that we're getting average people, ordinary people involved in the campaign to keep what we've won. And we're going to escalate the campaign and make sure that these budget cuts and austerity doesn't happen.
The people of Europe, for example, have been fighting against austerity measures that have been brought down on them from above, from the Troika, from the European Union, from the bureaucrats at the top of the political system in Europe on behalf of the ruling classes. They've been fighting for about 4 or 5 years, and they've gone out on several strikes, general strikes. The people of the working class of Greece, the working class of Spain, for the last 3 years, they've gone out on dozens of general strikes to fight these kinds of measures that we're seeing just beginning to be introduced in Australia. And what we're seeing is that, unfortunately, while there's a huge mood for fighting these attacks, and there's been great, powerful actions by the working class of Europe, it's not actually put an end to these attacks. And the reason for that is that it's not enough to just demand change, to protest on the streets. It's not even enough, really, to go on strike. What we need to really do is pose the question of building a real, genuine political alternative, because we can't just cause a government to fall and have an election and vote in another mainstream capitalist party that's going to do the same thing.
Fascist uprisings across the world. We're currently seeing. We have recently seen a neo-Nazi and a fascist attacks on Ukraine against civilians in the east, and the burning down of a trade union building in Odessa. We see the fascists have recently won a significant number of seats in Europe.
It's an ideological debate. That is the fundamental. You do not sit around the pub or at your workplace or with your family and discuss this along economic lines. Because if an economy needs these sorts of measures, if it needs these sorts of attacks on black people, if it needs these sorts of attacks on old people, on sick people, then we're here to say it's an economy we don't fucking want. There's got to be a better way.
We're going to come back. We're going to be back. We're going to be back on June the 12th at Trades Hall on the corner line on Victoria Street, and we're going to take this city. And if they don't change it come June the 12th, we're going to hassle the new Senate in July. We're going to come back in August. We're going to come back in September. We're going to come back in October. We are going to keep coming until they don't know what else to do. Thank you, everybody. They are going to be giving it to overseas multinational pharmaceutical corporations. And the rest of the money, what are they doing? They're buying 14 billion, they say it'll be 20 billion by the time they finish, F-35 fighters that no other country in the Western world wants, because they don't fucking work. And what is he buying? How is he paying for these fighters? He's paying for it with his fucking Medicare card. We can't pay for a GP, but he pays for the atrocities inflicted on Australian people with his Medicare card.
One more thing. Look at this. Look at this. You had a mic on the march. You do not need a microphone. You don't need a fucking degree, and you don't need to be sitting in Parliament to speak out about this stuff, right? If you're in a pub and someone accuses you of being a bit boisterous about your politics, you can tell them just how fucking loud me and Jacob were, and it doesn't compare. Maybe.
Hopefully you are that loud.
Hopefully you are that loud. Hopefully you're that loud.
Be loud. Be loud. Be proud. No, the
we know is capitalism. It's boom and bust. As soon as there's a bust, the capitalists, the 1%, they have control of the money, and the media, what they do is that they want to keep it for themselves, and they take cuts on welfare and healthcare and all those types of things, attacks on the working class. Capitalism is a rotten system, it's rotten worldwide, and Australia's starting to see protests like the rest of the world.
Ordinary people need to build a political alternative based around demanding these things that we're demanding, based on actually fighting on the streets as well as in Parliament for the changes that we need for a fairer world for all. Ultimately, we need to struggle for a socialist system, take ownership of the economy out of the hands of the minority 1% who currently take all of the profits for themselves and do not invest it in public education, public health, etc. We need to actually take all of the economy into public hands under democratic community control. And in order to do that, we need to actually start organising. And the experiences of people in Europe and the fact that they've fought for years now and have not actually made huge gains in advancing their interests shows that we need to strike and we need to build a political organisation that can represent the needs of the 99%, and we need to struggle for a totally new economic system.
The United States recently imposed sanctions on Venezuela because they claim that the fascists that have been killed in the recent uprising have been peaceful. Now, what we've actually seen is that we have seen Venezuela garnering massive support from its fellow South American countries and its key allies like Russia. So while we are seeing fascism and far-right terror spread across the world, we also see these. We also seeing hope rising. We're also seeing hope for a fight back that can not only stop but also reverse this new trend of far-right extremism. And it should not only be isolated to the fight back against fascists in Europe or fascists in Venezuela or Islamic fascists in Syria or fighting the fascist Tony Abbott here in Australia. This should be a worldwide movement of workers that are ready to join hands in a workers' uprising against the power of corporate capitalism which is mainly headquartered in the United States. If we are able to do that, then we can truly move as a human side. We can truly move forward on a much more progressive road than it is now. A much more humane road. A road where human need is put above corporate greed.
We will accept no exceptions on Medicare. We want the whole lot.
Sing Matilda with me. Who's the jolly jumper you've got in your tucker bag? You'll come along, sing Matilda with me. I've got the swaggy and jumped into the billabong. You'll never catch me alive, said he, and his ghost may be heard as you pass by that billabong. You'll come along, sing Matilda.